Next tonight, Aspel Company, with guests Chuck Berry, Anita Dobson and David Frost.
Tomorrow, exclusively in the Sunday Times, Derek Hatton.
I think that if I was a Tory and I was actually electing a leader, and I would certainly put my cross by Margaret Thatcher. There comes a time when questions have to be asked, who actually is the liability? And I don't believe it's Derek Hatton or Liverpool.
Derek Hatton in the Sunday Times tomorrow.
Mark and Sue have never taken good health for granted. To be sure of private health care, they became members of Bupa. This priority was brought home to them recently when Sue fell ill. She was treated in a Bupa hospital where her problem was diagnosed with a body scanner. You see, Bupa have priorities too. No one takes a profit. Anything left over from caring for their members today is reinvested for their future, like hospitals, health screening centers, and the latest medical technology. Most people choosing private health care join Bupa. Bupa. Britain feels better for it.
You never know when you'll need a local service to cheer up your home or lend a helping hand. Where you can go to find yourself a new job, a new interest, or a night on the town, your town. Why wait for the papers or wade through directories to find someone to sell your home? Whatever you need, the answer's at your fingertips on Oracle's free regional classified service. Page your Oracle and pop into your locals.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. I thought you might like a little inside information on what happened after last week's show when Elizabeth Taylor was my guest. What a mischievous woman. I was standing next to her, idly wondering who was going to win the Rugby International at Twickenham, when she turned round, she gave me a quick cheque for plastic surgery, and then she planted a great magenta lip print all over one side of my face. A queue of men then formed to kiss my cheek. There's nothing unusual about that around here, I'll tell you that. And I also got my signed photograph. I took it home and found a lovely frame for it on the piano. I explained to my wife that our wedding picture had got a bit faded anyway. And now to tonight's show. It's fully laden with glamour, sophistication and raw excitement. What else would you expect? My guests are that legendary hero of rock and roll fans and musicians alike, Chuck Berry. Woo! And we have our own Queen of the Soaps, Anita Dobson. And Anita will tonight explain why she has decided to abdicate. And now, before your very eyes, a man who once turned down £12 a week to play for Nottingham Forest and went on to become an incredibly wealthy broadcaster and business tycoon, a family man with 3 children called appropriately, hello, good evening, and welcome, David Frost.
What a very inventive introduction. I like that. Someone described me once when I was being introduced as someone who'd been on more jumbos than Sabu the elephant boy.
Well, I'll ask you about that a little later. Now, you scooped my Elizabeth Taylor interview by several years, didn't you?
By a year or two, wasn't it? Yes, because I was interviewing Richard in the States when he was up for an Oscar. This was in the early 70s, and Elizabeth had never done television. And she came along to the studio, and she wasn't going to be part of the program, but we were desperate to think of a way that she would feel led to appear. And Richard had been marvellous telling stories about being in armour in Shakespeare plays and things. And on one occasion he'd been celebrating Wales' victory in a rugby international, drank 8 pints of beer and forgot to go to the loo before getting into armour for 5 hours. And as you can imagine, he told the story superbly. When I next saw him the next time, he said he'd also lost 2 stones in weight, because when he watched the programme, he said he looked Chinese. Can you imagine Richard looking Chinese? But anyway, we managed to get to the point where basically, he told an adorable story about Elizabeth. We went to a break, and then I belted down to the green room, you know, and said, "You surely must come on now, Elizabeth." And she did. And it was her first ever television. She came on, she was wonderful. She came on with wearing a diamond, you know, that looked as though it would pay the national debt of Thailand. You know what I mean? It was really enormous. But she was superb, and that was her first ever television interview.
You've handled many tricky interviews. Can you remember your worst?
Oh, I think, yes, I think it was the world's greatest talking bird from Toronto in Canada. And this bird was supposed to have 100 phrases. His trainer, a very pushy trainer called Colin, was with this bird. And kept saying, "Go on, David, ask him any question. 100 phrases, instant command. Go on, ask him any question you care. Just ask." So if he was, "Shut up, I will," you know. Eventually he did shut up. And I did an interview for 5 minutes with this bird without getting a single out of the record. Not a sound. Not a donkey bird. And so I had to say, this is the world's greatest mime artist among talking birds. The Marcel Marceau of talking birds. We're very honoured to have with us today. And so that was a total
Yes,
plonker.
I had an American actress like that last series. What about tricks of the trade?
Can I guess the name?
No. Any tricks of the trade you can admit publicly? What do you do to settle yourself or your guest? Or
Well, it's a question of relaxing people, I think, isn't it? Because sometimes you get the most powerful men in the world can be really nervous of an interview, you know, and suddenly you just throw in a question to keep people quiet at the beginning. I mean, sometimes you get the questions. I remember I was talking to Isaac Asimov, and we were talking about God and so on, and I said, "Yes, but is there a force we don't know about?" And he said, "Well, there may be, but if there is, we don't know about it." Pretty total answer, you know.
are you still in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's greatest traveller?
Yes. I mean, it's 5 million miles and 1,000 trips between London and New York. I think the worst. There's always 4 or 5 people looking a bit of green and a bit nervous before takeoff. And I was on a flight from Detroit to Los Angeles, and the pilot came on the intercom, and you know there were 4 or 5 people on it. And he came on and he was that worst of all possible things, pilot with a sense of humour, as he so thinks. And they've got a captive audience, you're scarcely going to walk out on that or even on the movie, right? So that, and he comes on the intercom and he says, "Of course, some people claim they're afraid of flying, but that's nonsense. It's crashing they're afraid of." People very nearly did leave. You know. Peter Ustinov told me he was on a Lufthansa flight, and the pilot came on the intercom and said, we are expecting now, we are just encountering a little turbulence, but do not worry." And there was a hell of a lot of turbulence. And then it subsided, and the pilot came on intercom and said, "Well, you'll be glad to know we have the plane back under control again." For once he was pleased not to be told the truth the first time around.
I suppose it's therapy for you to tell these jokes to yourself. Are you still looking for the bizarre and amazing events for the book?
Oh yes, very much so. We find, I mean, it's difficult to top some of the extraordinary people. The guy who'd been struck by lightning 6 times. I mean, what an amazing coincidence. And by the time we found him, he'd been struck by lightning a 7th time, you know. And he worked rather foolishly, I thought, as a park ranger. Not the perfect career, I felt. And down in Brazil, we met the woman with the living woman with the greatest number of children, 33. Some of you are just not trying, you know. And 33, no multiple births, no cheating, and we interviewed her, then we interviewed her husband. And when he got up, he said, "Yes, I am married to this woman. With her I've had 33 children. But I've had 3 outside romances, through which I've had a further 92 children." At which point Norris McWhirter fell off his chair.
How old was this man, do you remember?
Well, he looked about 60 odd.
Yeah. This recent publication of yours, the world's shortest book, is also the world's most swiftly published, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it's been thrilling, because a viewer rang up. We'd been having this competition on Sunday mornings of getting people to send in the world's shortest books, and the viewers had been terrific, sort of, you know, Following in John Wayne's footsteps by Larry Grayson, you know, that sort of thing. Life at Number 10 by Neil Kinnock, you know. Another world shot someone sent in, Adolf Hitler, My Part in His Downfall by Kurt Waldheim, you know. And things like that. So, good stuff, very great. So this lady, Mrs. Haddon, rang up and suggested I do a book of them in aid of the Enniskillen Appeal Fund. And so we rushed the book out from the idea on November the 15th in 3 weeks. And it zoomed up to the top two, number 2 in the paperbacks before Christmas, and we were able to hand over a cheque for 66,000 to the Enniskillen Appeal Fund just a week before last. So that's marvellous. So the viewers really came through, and everybody came. I love other shorts, but I remember Keeping Turkeys as Pets by Bernard Matthews, and Make Your Own Sari by Enoch Powell.
Caring for Your Hamster the Freddie Starr Way, somebody said upstairs.
Oh, that's a very good one. And Complete Guide to Bar Mitzvah Toast by Yasser Arafat. Love and the Liberated Woman by Ayatollah Khomeini. That was
It's getting very dangerous here. So, now, through the Keyhole, your program, do you find that actually very revealing, not the content so much as what it tells about the people?
It's fascinating to me, yes, because there are people sometimes, some people have houses, I mean, Freddie Starr, you mentioned, in connection with hamsters there. I mean, his house is sort of larger than life and over the top in a way as you'd expect it to be. Spike Milligan was fascinating. Here is this incredible, zany comic genius with one of the tidiest, most elegant, restrained, almost repressed, not suppressed houses. I mean, really, exactly the reverse of what you'd expect.
Why do people submit, and would you allow them in your home?
Well, funnily enough, I said before the first series that everybody divides on Through the Keyhole, people you approach. Half of them say that would be fun, and the other half say never, not in a million years. And I tend to fall into the second category. But
what would embarrass you most if they did come to your house?
Well, it's nice to have a few things that are private. I don't know there's anything horrendous, but I mean, it's just kind of nice to have the things private. But on the other hand, everyone who's been on's had fun, so that maybe I'll change my mind.
You're now a happily married man, but you are the founder member of, what do you call yourselves, Marriage Anonymous?
Well, that was invented by, gosh, yes, that's many years ago. That was back in the mid-70s, early 70s. And that was invented by Burt Reynolds. And the theory was, and he called up Warren Beatty and I, and formed Marriage Anonymous on the theory that if any of the three of us got tempted to get married, we'd ring up the others and we'd go around and make them drunk and get them drunk until they forgot it. I mean, it was a slight switch on the traditional form. And this was the agreement. And in fact, I was the first to fall, in fact. And I just read this week Warren Beatty has announced that he's getting... I must give him a call.
Yes, you must.
Burt Reynolds is now a one-man organisation. Lonnie, it's going to be all right.
Did you have to pay forfeits when you...
Not yet, anyway. No, that's a good idea.
Now, there's another question that may have occurred to you. It certainly occurred to the rest of the nation this week, and that is, will she or won't she? But the question has now changed to, why did she? And you're looking mystified, but we'll find the answer now from Anita Dobson. Well, here you are looking lovely. EastEnders without Angie, I mean, can it be, and why?
Yes, it is going to be so. The reason why is a question I considered for quite a long time. I'd sort of broached the subject last year to the producer, Julia Smith, and we both decided to give ourselves time to discuss whether that should become a fact or not. Also, I wanted to give them time to write me out without dropping the bombshell out of the blue. So I went away and did the pantomime and came back, and we had lots of talks and lunch, and gradually she decided, along with me, that if I was going to take a break and do other things, that this was the best time to do that. And she very graciously allowed the door to stay open so that I could come back if I wanted to.
How long have you got to go?
I'll be filming up until April 16th, but I'll still be on screen till about the end of June. So about another 7 or 8 weeks.
It isn't because of any damage you've done slapping your thigh in this varicose vein or something.
No, I don't know where they got the story from, but I didn't slap my thighs, and I didn't have any bruises.
But how will Angie not meet her end, because the door is still open? But is there a storyline you can reveal?
There is a storyline, which I can't reveal, but I'm very happy about it.
Listen, I don't want to worry you, but Joan Collins said she was quite interested in doing something on that show.
Well, she'd never take the drop in salary. But she'd have fun with Dirty Den. Oh,
yeah. Yes. There are rumours that he's going as well, Leslie Grantham.
I think probably Leslie has thought about that subject too, but I don't believe he's made a decision yet. If he has, I'm not at liberty to disclose it.
Well, how far ahead is the real Anita Dobson looking then, and what are your plans?
Well, my plans are not to make any plans, because I think it would be foolhardy of me to rush into something else just to prove that I'm working. Also, I do need time to have a holiday, spend some time with my family, look for a house, and generally get used to the idea that I'm not in EastEnders.
You were a barmaid in the East End in real life, weren't you, for a while?
Yes, I was.
Were you good?
I think I was exceedingly good, yes. I used to... Quite a chatty little bird, I suppose they'd say. Yes.
Give the right change?
That was the thing you had to watch, because in the East End, they're very hot on that. If you don't give the right change, it's, "Oh, darling, here a minute," you know. So I did check the change regularly, yes.
What about the chance of Angie living on in America? I mean, what are the chances? Do you think it's going to catch on there?
I think, judging from the response we've had so far, they seem to be watching the programme. And I think the longer they watch it, the longer they will get caught up in it, the more absorbed they'll become. So hopefully, yes, I think it may catch on.
But David, you're a transatlantic person. What do you think the Americans would make of it?
Well, when it started, it was the American papers over there, I noticed, were printing huge glossaries and vocabularies of this means that and so on. But it is quite difficult, I mean, the language barrier, or the verbal, I mean, all the phrases that mean different things and so on. I mean, the English matron who went to New York and rang down to the bell captain and said, "Knock me up at 8 o'clock in the morning." Well, that was quite different over there.
Did he?
The form of room service she wasn't anticipating. But so that's the problem, obviously. But I mean, it's had some good reviews and some bewilderment from people while they, as you say, if they've got to listen. If it can keep going for another 6 months, then people will really have caught it. Actually.
I think Scunthorpe's got a few problems as well. Learn on the Americans. So, Anita, you don't, of course, sound like Angie at all. I mean, are you good at accents? Part of your actress's armoury?
I sort of made a decision at some point after I'd left drama school that I wanted choice in my life. And I wanted the choice to be able to talk like that if I wanted to, or to talk properly if I wanted to. And so now I can do both. Hopefully if I do other accents, I'll have more choices. But though that's my native accent, and I also can speak properly when I choose.
Well, we'll start then. I mean, if I had made you cross them, would you have reverted naturally to the good old East End?
I'd have punched your eyes out, Gav.
Oh! What about accents? As you say, you wanted choice, but a few years ago, everyone flanked like that, even those who played the most menial parts of terrible like that, weren't they? Yeah. Do you think it matters, David, at all, accents these days?
I don't know. I think there was a period when those accents really worked, that you just performed so superbly. Michael Aspel can do accents very well.
Write it down quickly.
Then there was a period when those accents were tough, weren't they? I mean, Michael Caine, and now EastEnders, I suppose, and things like that. But Michael Caine era, when in the late 60s, after Michael had made it big with Alfie and things, you could hear Nigel Fotheringham-Smith desperately trying to talk like that again.
Yes.
So I'm not sure which is best to have today.
Well, I think it's good to have the choice, perhaps, yes.
And how do you handle public recognition?
I think you can only deal with it as it happens. You can't plan to deal with it in a certain way. You just hopefully deal with it the best you can at the time.
But what sort of things do they shout?
What do you mean? Who?
Well, taxi drivers, lorry drivers, people who...
Oh, hello, darling, all right, and Jazz Den, you know, that sort of thing.
And you say, thank you so much.
I say... Thank you so much. He's fine. Filthy as ever, yes.
David, what do people call to you in the street?
Well, apart from Frosty has got more play lately. I mean, when I was at school, it was Jack Frost. It was school children being very inventive. But I remember when here comes Frost, it's getting cold round here. Very brilliantly. Anyway, but I remember about 6 weeks into that was the week that was, which was really the first national programme I did. I remember going into Harrods to buy something, and I took out the checkbook and started writing the cheque. And the guy behind the counter said, "Oh, Mr. Frost, we never miss your show." And I said, "Oh, really, that's very nice," carried on writing. He said, "Do you know, if my wife and I are out, we make sure we get back by 10:30 in the evening." I said, "That's very nice," carried on writing. He said, "And if we're at home, we always make sure we've eaten and washed up before the show." I said, "That's very nice." He handed over the cheque and he said, "Do you have any means of identification?"
People ask you to sign bits of paper. Have they asked you to sign more unusual items?
Yes, I have been, at some occasions, asked to sign chests or people's bottoms. But it's very difficult to get a purchase with the pen because it's terribly sweaty. So I don't do it very often.
On the chest, you mean?
On the chest, yes. I don't do bottoms as a rule. No.
That bottom.
An actress, I don't do bottoms.
Gosh, I've never heard. That's special. Because when you sign people's arms, sometimes they say, "I'll never wash again," but with bottoms.
Now, what about press interest? It's inevitable, but do you find it a terrible intrusion?
It can be at times, but I think you have to take it on board as part and parcel of being in the public eye.
There have been some wild inventions, I presume, about your love life.
What love life? You mean the one you read about in the paper?
Exactly. Yes.
Well, yes, I mean, I have to read it too to find out what I'm doing and who I'm dating. Who am I dating?
Well, I'll tell you about half an hour from now. Would you miss it if it did dry up after...
If what dried up?
It is a problem, yes. But yes, if the press attention were to stop, would that upset you?
I don't know. I'll have to wait and find out.
Yes, of course. Listen, you two, I've got to check the fuse box now because we've got a rather powerful electric guitar to accommodate in the next half. So after the break, we'll be meeting Chuck Berry. For the moment, thank you, Anita Dobson and David Frost. Thank you.
With new higher fibre whole soups, Heinz really is.
Supercharged?
Like new tomato and lentil whole soup, one of a delicious range of soups with higher fibre that make Heinz more wholesome than ever.
Superbowl.
New higher fibre whole soup.
As I served my lady's meal one night, she expired in her soup. When I clocked her smirking sons, I twigged they're after the old girl's loot. Where there's a will, there's a way. So the brief turns up to give the news, and from the will he reads, "My butler, mate, gets the whole estate." I was laughing all the way to the Leeds. Crying shame for the boys, though. Now, I've got an account called Liquid Gold. That's where I'm going to stack it. Because the Leeds are great for interest rates. You can easy make a packet. Yeah, now it's a doddle too. Well, the boys were there to welcome me home with a pair of heavy choppers. But knowing they were penniless, I brought them back some coppers. I'm almost as generous as the Leeds. There's a moral in this story. Don't do evil deeds. It isn't crime that pays, my son. It's that good old place, the Leeds.
Liquid Gold now pays up to 7% for bigger savers, so laugh all the way to the Leeds.
If you'd like to clean those hard-to-reach back teeth, either get a flip-top head or get a Reach toothbrush from Johnson & Johnson.
The Volvo 340, tested by dummies, driven by the intelligent.
Welcome back. I could go on at length about how much the music of Chuck Berry meant to my generation and still means to today's kids, but I won't. As for the man, someone has said the more you find out about him, the less you know about him. I can but try. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Berry. Well, it's good to see you. You're a travelling light man, aren't you? I mean, you're a one-man band.
Light, yes.
You don't carry other musicians with you?
Yes, I just started in about 3 months carrying a band because so many people ask, why don't you carry your own band? So now I am. There was reasons for me not to, though, back in the 60s. Things got a little smoky and juicy, too, for that matter.
And you're a clean living man, aren't you? You don't...
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I'm trying.
But you don't rehearse. I mean, you can be difficult.
Yes, I do. We had a 3-minute rehearsal just before the...
That's an unusual thing. You're known
Well,
to...
I don't know. With musicians like that, maestros, I think you can just say a few words, especially songs with 2 changes, you know.
What was your own worst concert experience?
I missed one because of snow. And in fact, it was the 3rd one in my career in Kentucky. I tried to drive down, and I missed one in the snow. Other than that, to me, it's not a worse concert. It's when I'm playing in front of people who are not my, so we say, clientele. I played in a jazz house with, I forget the jazz, but the artist, but I was playing Maybelline, the only 2 songs I had, and they would just walk out when I came on and walk back at J.J. Winding. That's who it was. And he'd play his jazz, from which I hate with a passion, jazz. And so I had no audience, and he had the entire audience. They just walked out and got a beer, and when I went off, they came back in and enjoyed their music.
But what happened in Minneapolis? There was a rather unpleasant concert for you there, wasn't there? When they didn't want you to stop.
I can't remember.
Didn't the guy pull a gun and say...
Oh, no, Mineola, Mississippi.
Oh.
Yeah, Mississippi. Which is quite in a different country. Really, yeah. We were playing New Year's Eve from 8 to 12, my contract, and I have a record for following contracts. New Year's Eve, everything starts at 12 o'clock. And at 12:01, make sure I give them a good 4 hours. I pack my gear, and we were leaving, and the old farmer, it was a small house, 200 people, he said, play on. He says, you didn't start till 5 after, you know, and that was, my watch was 8 o'clock. Anyway, we started playing on, you know, because that was Mississippi, you know. And we didn't stop until he said that was enough, 3:15 or something. We didn't stop.
David, you promoted concerts. You promoted Neil Diamond, didn't you? Were you a ruthless promoter?
No, I was adorable. He was... I've never sung for anybody. I can't sing at all. I mean, I'm just can't sing at all. And he got me up on stage one day during this tour, introduced me, and then, to my horror, got me to join in Song Sung Blue, and I was desperately trying to go, everybody knows one. Pathetic it was. And I'd said to him before, you know, I can't sing at all, and he'd obviously ignored it. But after the concert, he said, you were quite right. You really can. Terrible.
Well, it's good for him to know you're an honest man if he's promoting your concert. Your autobiography has just come out as well. What is your actual first musical memory, Chuck?
Hearing the beat of the Southern Baptist, I am bound spirituals. Bound for the promised land, rocks of ages. And believe me, I was about 2 in the what are the beds that the babies have? It's been so long, 60 years ago, I can't remember. Hearing my parents sing in the choir, and they rehearsed in the front room. We had 3 rooms. And I'm in the crib there. I can actually remember this, you know. If I had the setting on a picture that I was directing, I could put it exactly like it was. Not very important, but I could.
Roll over Beethoven. That was a childhood inspiration, too.
The inspiration came from, I'm 11 now. You got me going fast. And my sister did classical music on the piano, and she had all the privilege because she was doing something like, it was said, worthwhile. Excuse me a minute. Have I ever been on your program when you were...
Yes, you...
I thought so.
That's right. Yeah. This is David Frost, and this is Anita Dobson.
Bill Haley, is it?
Now, did you, Chuck, did you meet a lot of prejudice as a performer?
Yes, I did, and might I say that I met it long before I was a performer, which sort of, say, grooved me or trained me in for it, because my father was a carpenter, and I went around with him since 8, and we worked for a realty company in the white neighborhood, and this is very popular over there because, just to insert this, I didn't realize that all black people weren't black until I came to Europe and found out when people said, oh, or I used to wear my hair wavy and out from my head, and they said, oh, are you East Indian? Oh, are you Jamaican? Or, gee, they have distinctions over here. You're not just black, you might be something. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did have it, and Dad, the way Dad handled it, we worked in the white neighborhood, of course, and the way he handled it trained me how and to handle it, you know, because Dad was very gentle and very subtle about the insults that may come from some of the males in the places. Well, you can't work here, I'm leaving, you know, and his wife is in there cooking, you know, whatever. And Dad would say, well, I'll have the realty company send someone else, and thank you. So by the time I got on the road playing music and had to go to some of the back windows in the South, you know, to get a meal because the front windows weren't available, you know, signs wide open. I was ready for it, I knew it. But my brethren, some of the guys from Detroit, New York, you know, they didn't eat, but I did. Maybe that's because of my form, you know, I kept it up.
You've been in prison 3 times. You didn't...
Every 17 years. You see. But I have a fad for that.
You used the time wisely, though, haven't you? You've never just sat around inside.
The second 2 times, the first time was a complete, and the longest time, which was 2.5 years. It was a complete experience for me because, first place, I didn't have the girlfriend problem to work, to bother with. And it was... it was an adventure. It was like being in high school because there were fellows that told me things about life, but the second time was very. That's when I had been through halfway through my career, and this was for the Indian and girl again thing. You know, they're a big part of my life. And I took business courses, and then I found out what a corporation was after I had owned 2. And, by taking a business course, and I wrote a few of the songs that became fairly popular. Presley recorded one, and Nadine, and...
yes, that's one of my great favorites.
Really? Mm-hmm.
No Particular Place to Go. That was quite a good one to have written while in prison, wasn't it?
I love it.
You've said, Chuck, in the book as well, every 15 or 17 years you say, I seem to make a big mistake. So when is the next one due?
In about 5 years, and I'm watching out in about... Well, but it seemed the first one was 2.5 years incarceration. The second one, 16 months. The third one, 88 days. I won't have enough time for a big project.
What about your next book? What are you planning there?
Now, that's very good. Take this as I say it. I am not writing a book about my sex, but I am writing a book about the hypocrisy of sex and the overvalue that most, this is international, people put on sex, because abortion is sex, you know. And the minute you mention sex, oh, this is going to be a good program, you know. Well, it's not such. It's not such. And more and more sex-orientated programs are coming on, you know. And I'm glad you hit on it, because I've never been able to get into a program that I like to mention my views about it, you know. And so you asked the question.
Yeah, sure. So this is not going to be an autobiographical account of your various conquests.
No, but it will include, you know, I want to...
This is going to be a fairly big book.
Experience... Bob Hope questions. You have to think about it before it hits you. I want to talk about some of my experiences, but more so explain the sort of experiences that cause so much, you know. For instance, can you imagine a man killing another man because some other man gave his wife pleasure? You know, it's not worth death. Sometimes it's not, if you really look at it, you can give someone pleasure in many ways. Well, pleasure is pleasure, you know. If people stop to think, there wouldn't be so much jealousy in these things. And I'm trying to explain these things in the book, my view of them. And I think it would be quite a universal view.
You mean that a husband whose wife has been unfaithful should thank the other man for being...
Well, I didn't say thank, you know, but I mean, he surely should not kill, you know. Now, he might maim him a little bit.
And does that extend to your own
It should
wife?
be more consideration given to the victim, I would say. Well, not the victim, the plaintiff. The one who did the wrong.
If this was your own situation with your own lovely wife, would you maim, would you kill, or would you just...
No, but I would surely educate him, you know. One reason, it has to be half the other person's affair, like the wife's cause, too, you know. Because I never did believe in sheer overpowering, not one person to one person. I mean, if I was a woman, I should never be molested in that way, because there's too many ways I can think of preventing it, you know. If nothing but just keep moving, you know.
Now, we know you've been around a long time because history tells us so, but it is very difficult to believe that you are now 61 years old.
Yes, I was born in 18...
Yeah. So, you're extremely fit, aren't you?
It seems as though I'm still rocking.
And your music is now literally out of this world.
I hope so. I'm very fortunate. I want to thank all of Britain and all of Europe, for that matter, for recognizing some of the works I've done, because I really like it myself.
The reason I mention out of this world, because I know it's been taken on a spacecraft to other planets.
How about that?
Yeah. But now, bring it down to earth, they're all, not quite really, of all the people who've sung your praises, and I don't think anybody has expressed it better than at the beginning of your film, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, John Lennon.